Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far, with plenty of teams making massive decisions right about now as to what their roster is going to look like for the upcoming season. Doug Censor, the chief talent scout for the Boston Breach, has given his thoughts on what OpTic have done wrong over the last few years, and saying straight up that if they get rid of Ghosty, that's a massive mistake on their part that they will live to regret. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, I thought this is pretty funny from Miles, to be fair. The Miles World League, here he is, replacing Slasher. We do expect that FaZe are looking certainly for an upgrade. It might not happen, they might get Slasher back anyway, they might look at Octane, they might look at other possibilities, but probably not going to be Miles to Ross. But we'll see about that, potentially keeping options open there. This I thought was also quite nice, because most players have gone back to Cold War, right, for 8 so far in this off-season, and Arcitys says, where are the Infinite Warfare 8s? And immediately thought was like, oh yeah, get me in there straight away. That would certainly be a very good time. Also wanted to mention Drazah completed a 24-hour stream last night, and you might think, okay, what's the big deal about this? But I will say that if you were a player that was particularly concerned about your situation in Rostermania, would you be turning the stream off for 24 hours in a row? Because, you know, you've got to have conversations, you've got to talk to certain players and to certain teams and keep up with what's going on, and most players will usually take a bit of a break from streaming until everything is resolved and they can be pretty confident that they're in a good spot. Streaming for 24 hours straight in this period is pretty interesting, just because I'm sure that Drazah is having conversations, but it's not like he can turn off the stream and go and have a chat with the general manager, because he's streaming for 24 hours straight. So either Drazah feels very confident that his spot is locked up for next year, because those are the conversations we've had recently, that Drazah to OpTic is a likely possibility. Would FaZe look at Drazah? Would another team look at Drazah? I think they probably would, but at the end of the day, FaZe, aBeZy, Drazah, I don't know if that's really going to be a thing, and I quite like the idea of OpTic Drazah in theory, although many OpTic fans don't, and I can understand why. And seemingly Doug is in a similar boat actually, in terms of not wanting to get rid of Ghosty, but maybe Drazah feels pretty confident that the OpTic thing is potentially going to happen, and therefore he's been chilling out somewhat on stream the last couple of days. But it's always interesting to know what exactly is going on there behind the scenes. Also, we've got Shotzzy playing some Cold War here. This I'd never seen before. If you guys have played this map, it's crazy how quickly he discovered this, because if this is Apocalypse, of course, from Cold War, and he goes to hold this angle as well here on the right hand side, and he notices this pixel gap through the wall, and I'd never seen this before. I don't know if you guys used to use this, but he can hold this little off angle, see the pixel gap, and I mean, if you guys are playing Cold War 8s again, then maybe this is actually viable despite the game being several years old, and he can hold this pixel gap, see when Zoomer comes through, and then just get ready to shoot him. So yeah, I don't know, I thought that was pretty dirty, to be fair, from Shotzzy, that I'd somehow never seen before, despite the fact that Shotzzy, like, you know, he maybe never discovered it before either, despite the fact that he played quite a lot of this game and was rather good at it, right, on that Dallas Empire team back in the day. Wanted to share a quick clip here as well that came out on stream last night, where Ghosty was playing with Drazah, actually, very interesting. Playing a game here on Express Search and Destroy, and it seems like he says, that's why to general managers, you've got to sign me up type thing. Now, I think what he actually is referring to here is his teammate Nate, but I'll share the clip anyway.
Bro, somebody please
Holy shit.
Everyone who's listening, please, any GMs, please sign me.
Yo!
For the love of Christ.
Let's start clapping, bro. It's good shit. You guys are beast, bro.
So on first listen, it kind of sounds like he says, any GMs, please sign me. But, and that's kind of what I thought he said. But he actually replied and said, no, I was referring to Nate as in Pentagram, saying I did in fact say, please sign Nate, this handsome guy Pentagram. So I'm not exactly sure if he did, or whether he's now backtracking and, you know, giving this as a good explanation as to why he said what he said, because there's an argument that Ghosty does kind of wear his heart on his sleeve, maybe more than some other players do. And if he has been released by OpTic and is expected to be looking for another opportunity, then you might not be surprised if Ghosty fries in something like this and says something to that effect. But maybe not. We'll get more information, I'm sure, very soon indeed on this one. Speaking of OpTic, I did also want to mention this from JP Krez. This is spotted in Zoomer's chat here. That so JP did a tweet the other day that said, oh, it's been great to be here for the year and all this stuff. Like, it's been a difficult journey, but we're making good progress. And it was kind of difficult to read into whether he was saying that because he thought that he was going to be moving on, right? And that was going to be the end of his time on OpTic, or whether his actual expectation was that he was going to keep going. And as he says here in the chat, still here. The tweet did sound kind of sad, but I'm still here, we reckon. So yeah, JP's not going anywhere from OpTic is the understanding. One man that might be though is Ghosty, right? He actually retweeted his own tweet as well last night, which does coincide a bit with the free agency extension deadline, right? But Doug gave his thoughts on this as well. So Doug's played with Ghosty for some time. He of course brought him up in some sense in the challenger side, and Doug has done no doubt a phenomenal job in scouting talent for Boston over over the last couple of years, he has been pretty much as good, if not, you know, their general manager, right? Let's be honest. He has conversations with Dens a lot. He looks at players. He brought Snoopy in. He brought Beans in. A lot of players, Kremp, for example, Ghosty, these guys that have now stepped up to do great things in the CDL itself. And yes, Duck hasn't quite got to that level. And he says if he was in the league, then probably his opinion gets given some greater credence by the fans. But his opinion is that they need to stop trying to just put pieces together to create the Dynasty V2 and rather get a player in, stick by him for a bit longer, and hopefully develop him into the player that he can become.
Like, imagine if OpTic had me recruiting their talent for them. Imagine if they had me recruiting their next superstars. I'd do all the work for them and they had the best winning team. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, they don't have that in their organization. They kind of just, like, take at face value what they believe is the superstar, and they just throw it all together and hope it works for the best. That's the image that I get from OpTic Gaming when I look at the moves that they make throughout the years. Throughout their entire career span, OpTic's entire legacy, ever since the beginning, that's what I've been receiving as an impression from them from the very beginning, ever since I've ever known about. I've known OpTic since literally the very beginning. Like, I've literally seen it. So that's the impression they give me. They just go after the biggest superstar at all times. And I don't think they actually do their due diligence. I think they just kind of like, they want to make a team that has a lot of talent on it and hope for the best. And I think that if they, and I think it worked out for them with the OpTic Dynasty, with Formal, Crimstick, Scump, and Karma. It worked out for them once. I think they're always trying to chase that same formula. Let's find this Crimstick, Scump, Karma, and Formal. All right, so we got the Dashy and the Shotzzy. That could replace the Scump and the Formal. So now we need to find people to replace the Crimsticks and the Karma, right? Like, it seems like to me like that's what their like mindset is on all this shit. And in reality, it's like you could build them up to be that. You could build people up to being that. And I don't think they like take the time to actually build the people up. I think they just want to get them at face value. Why do I know this? Because Boston Breach gave me the power to pick players up for their organization. Ghosty's a great example too. Ghosty could be a superstar. If they get rid of Ghosty, they're losing a superstar. I'm just being straight up. Ghosty's a superstar, but his stats say he's not a superstar. Ghosty's a superstar. They're going to lose a superstar if they drop that guy. You know what I mean? It's like that's the way I look at all this shit. I'm just going to build all the superstars on Boston Breach, and they're going to get all the credit and recognition because they are the real superstars, and they're going to be winning because they're the best. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, if Doug was in the league, people respect his takes more. Yeah, I mean, I haven't earned a league spot, right? So, like, when I earn a league spot and I say that Dashy's got to fuck a team player and win more, I think there would still be hate, but I think there would be less hate because I think people would respect the fact that, like, I'm in the league. And then they'll be like, you suck, Dashy owns your shit, blah, 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 right? Like, that's what they would say, so. But, like, I'm very confident that when I play Dashy in the league, I'm going to beat him. That's why I speak about it like this, because if I don't beat him, people will just roast me and say I suck. Like, I could live with that. But, like, if I do beat him, I could be like, haha, I told you so. You know what I mean? But I played Dashy before, so it's like, I'm not, like, talking like a delusional motherfucker. Like, I've actually played the guy. Like, I know how he plays.
So Doug reckons that getting rid of Ghosty would be a big error. I think it was pretty interesting the way he talked about the OpTic philosophy in terms of trying to say, all right, we've got our Scump, we've got our Formal in terms of the players they brought in. Now we've got to get our Crim and our Karma and try and build that type of squad. Maybe it doesn't work like that anymore. And maybe it does make sense. Like Ghosty, as I said earlier today when I was discussing Beans and other players that have had good rookie seasons, maybe not spectacular rookie seasons, but good rookie seasons, there's likely a significant percentage that they can improve in the future, right? And I think that Ghosty can be a real force. And maybe if OpTic were to stick by him and keep going with Ghosty for another season or so, he could get even better and more impactful. And let's be honest, he comes in, they get a couple of second places, they look way better. His numbers aren't drastically dissimilar to iLLeY's. I mean, we look at the numbers overall on the season, the numbers are actually pretty similar between iLLeY and between Ghosty. I mean, okay, this is iLLeY's overall season card, this is Ghosty's overall season card, and if we look at the KDs, we look at the kills per 10, we look at the damage, it's not too different to be honest, right? Okay, Ghosty has more hill time though, that is certainly a key point, and in Search and Destroy, I think he was probably marginally better. They actually have exactly the same first blood rate, which is kind of remarkable given the fact that they were on the team for different lengths of time, and over different periods of the season, right? iLLeY was on the team for far less time, but I guess he just got into more first blood engagements relative to the amount of time he had on the team than Ghosty did, But regardless, iLLeY was, you know, an interesting player for these guys. And I think that when he was on their team doing the leadership stuff at the start of Vanguard, it seemed to work so well. But for some reason, that stopped a little bit. Shotzzy had to do some of the leadership, which was never going to work long term. And ever since Ghosty came in, that really did help them turn things around. Can Ghosty get even better next year? Fundamentally, Ghosty was forced into a role that he doesn't typically play. On his teams before, he's usually been more of a slayer rather than getting the hill time, doing the comms, calling everyone out and stuff, but he still did a very commendable job. So I think there's an argument to say that Ghosty, wherever he goes next, will improve that roster over time, and maybe OpTic are making a mistake letting him go. Because the way I look at it is that if the OpTic curse is to continue as it full well might, we know that for the last 4 years in a row, one player that's been, or potentially coach, that's been released by OpTic has gone on to win the World Championship the next year. 2019, it was Crim, who won in 2020. 2021, of course, it was won by Arcitys, who was released by Huntsman the year before. Then it was Envoy, and most recently it's been Censor. And if there's any player on OpTic that if they get released is potentially going to do bigger and better things, I would say Ghosty's the most likely candidate to go on to win champs next year as it stands. So maybe someone with Doug's mindset around the OpTic camp could be viable, but again, as you know, Ix has said for some time, if you can pack a punch, you always try and go for the pack a punch. And if they think that Drazah is simply a better version of Ghosty, then you might as well give it a go, I guess, in their perspective. And Doug says absolutely they're not going to sign Jimbo even on the academy, so he's definitely preparing to ensure that situation and that eventuality does not happen for next year at all costs. Just one final thing to mention for you guys here from FaZe as they come out with here. If all players are in their prime form, which squad wins in a best of 9? Now, it does depend on the game, I think, to a certain extent. And I know people were joking around the fact that, you know, Atlanta FaZe would dominate them in the winners finals, but if it was a grand final best of 9, then they would always find a way to get second, right? This new FaZe team. But I think it's difficult to say because you're in different eras fundamentally. And this team was phenomenal at the end of Advanced Warfare, no doubt. But in their entire periods, Black Ops 3, they weren't so good. Infinite Warfare, they won again at the start, but still weren't so good. So, look, Atlanta FaZe are the superior team out of the two, there's no doubt about it. But it also is somewhat difficult sometimes to compare across different eras. But very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.